Okay, I'll begin my recording of my solutions to question 5, 6, and 7 here. We want to determine the equation of the line passing through these 2 points. So step number 1 is to get the slope using the formula m is equal to y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. Or we could call that ya minus yb divided by xa minus xb. Okay, so if I take my points here, I'll call this 1.1 and this 1.2. I would take my y value, which is 22, from point 2, and then subtract the y value from point 1. So my difference in the y is divided by the difference in the x. So I'm going to go with minus 5 and then take away 2. So order matters. 0.2 minus 0.1, 0.2 minus 0.1. All right, 22 take away 8 should be 14. And then on the bottom, I'm going to have minus 7. And if I do the actual calculation here, I get a slope of negative 2. And then we substitute that value in y equals mx plus b. So where the m is, that gets replaced with negative 2. And then we pick one of our 2 points to work with to sub into the equation for x and y. So I'm going to pick the 2, 8 because it's smaller and I don't have to worry about the negatives like I do with the other point. The 8 goes in for the y. And the 2 goes in where the x is. I don't know how I keep moving that, but I do. The 2 is going to go in 2 there, and the x gets replaced with the 2 from the point right here. And then we have our plus b. We calculate that. We get 8 is equal to negative 4 plus b. Get b by itself. The thing keeping it b from being alone is the minus 4, so we're going to add 4 to both sides. We get 12 is equal to b. So now we've got our equation. Our equation is y equals, the m is minus 2x, and then our b value, or our y-intercept, is a 12. Next example. Number 6, determine the equation of the line that has the same x-intercept as this. So the line that we want is going to have the same x-intercept as this one, which means I need to get the x-intercept of that line, and that will be a point on the line I need. And it also passes through this point, and that would be my second ordered pair, which then I could use my slope formula for. So I'm going to start with my 4x minus 3y plus 12 equals 0. And to get the x-intercept, I want to let y equal 0 for the x-intercept. Okay, anywhere on the x-axis, the y-coordinate has to be 0. So we're going to have 4x minus 3 times 0, so that really just becomes nothing. And then plus 12, 3 times 0 is 0. And then I could subtract 12 from both sides. And we get 4x is equal to negative 12. And then divide both sides by 4. We're going to get x is equal to negative 3. And I wrote a 4 instead for some reason, because that's just silly. Negative 3. There we go. All right, so that is a coordinate of negative 3 comma 0. So that's one point that our line goes through. And then, of course, we were given that it also goes through the point negative 7 comma 3. Okay, so my next step then would be to use my slope formula of m is equal to that y2 minus y1, or ya minus yb, over x2 minus x1, or a minus xb. Subbing my values in, I'm going to start with the bottom and then take the top away. So I'm going to have a 3, take away 0, and then I have to do the same thing with the x's. I'm going to have negative 7, take away negative 3, which will become a plus 3. So on the top we've got 3, and then negative 7 add 3 would be a negative 4. So we've got a slope of negative 3 over 4. We usually move the negatives up to the numerator so they don't get lost in the bottom. It's just a convention that we use in math. Okay, at this point now, we use y equals mx plus b. We're going to sub in the value of our slope for the m. And then we're going to pick one of the 2 points to sub in. And because I have just a 0 and a negative 3 here, I think I'll use the x-intercept that I found, But it really doesn't matter. In the end, you should end up with the same answer overall. The x was -3, sub that in. That's plus b. Now 0 is equal to -3 times -3 is a 9, positive 9. And then that -3 is really over 1. Multiply your fractions together, you get a 4 as your denominator there. So then I would subtract 9/4 from both sides, and I would end up with b being equal to -9/4. So my equation then is y equals -3/4 x. And I said x and wrote x, but I meant to put a 4 there. -3/4, now I need my x, and then minus 9/4. Okay, hopefully that helps with that one. Next page. Question 7. Determine the equation on the line that's perpendicular to this one. So if it has to be perpendicular, we should remember back in grade 9 when we talked about lines that were parallel. Parallel means their slopes were equal. But with lines that are perpendicular, their slopes have to be negative reciprocals of one another. So I'm going to need the slope, and I did it again, and I'm not sure how I'm doing that. If anybody knows, let me know, and I'll try and not do that next time. So this one we need the slope of this line, and then we want to find its negative reciprocal, and that will be the slope that I want to use. It also has the same x-intercept as this one, which means I'm going to need the x-intercept just like we did in the last one. All right, so I'm going to start with the blue here, the perpendicular to this 4x minus 2y. I think my hand keeps touching the screen, and that is causing it to move around. This must be like a 2-finger thing. Yeah, it looks like what it is, but I'm not sure how I can get it to stop doing that. All right. I need the slope of this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to rearrange this in the y equals mx plus b form. I'm going to add 2y to both sides here to get the y, start getting the y by itself. That leaves me with 4x plus 7. 4x plus 7 is equal to 2y, but I still need to get y by itself. So I've got to get just 1y. Oops, I did it again. Okay, divide everything by 2, and that's going to give me a 2x, because 4 divided by 2 is 2, plus 7/2, or 3.5 if you would rather, is equal to the y. So from here, my slope is a 2, or positive 2 over 1, or 2. So the slope that's perpendicular, so this is upside down t with a right angle on it, means perpendicular. It's a short form for that. Slope that's perpendicular to that would have the opposite sign, and it gets flipped over. So if that's 2 over 1, when I flip it over, it'll be 1 over 2. So there's the slope that I need. And then I need the same x-intercept as this other line. So for the x-intercept, I'm going to work over here for x-intercept. We let y equal 0. So I'm going to sub 0 in for my y. So 2 times 0 makes that really just become a 0 there. So that part really just kind of goes away. And I have a 3x minus 8 equals 0. I'm going to add 8 to both sides. Well, that's not the prettiest number, but anyway, it's going to be a fraction. I'm going to get 3x equals 8. Divide both sides by 3. And x is equal to 8/3. I'm going to leave that in fraction form. If I go to a decimal, it's going to be a repeating decimal, but it's not a terminating decimal, which isn't super pretty, but either way, it's not super nice. Okay, I have a slope, and I have a point. So I'm going to start with my y equals mx. My m is -1/2 x plus b. And then I'm going to sub my point in, 0 for the y, -1/2 times 8 over 3. That's my x value, plus b. Now, I can multiply my numerators together. That's going to give me -8, and then the denominators would be over 6. -8 over 6 would reduce to 4 over 3. Or before I multiply, I could reduce both the top and bottom by a factor of 2. I'm just dividing a bottom by 2 and dividing a top by 2. So on the top I get -1 times 4 which is negative 4, and 1 times 3 is 3. And then I could add 4/3 to both sides to make b be equal to 4/3. So my equation is y equals negative 1/2 x plus 4/3. I hope that helps.